Hello, everyone, and welcome to Court of the Rings here on twitch.tv/LotroStream, youtube.com/Lord of the Rings/live, and facebook.com/Lotro. I'm Lotro's community manager, Cordovan, and I am here for the first time in 2020. It's been a break. It's been a while. It's been, like 20 days? Something like that since we last spoke, which, in internet time is generations ago. Many moons ago, back in the age of 2019, we last spoke of Lord of the Rings Online, and we're going to do that again today. I'm going to be bumming around a little bit, doing Shades in the Swamp kind of stuff, and going to be talking mostly about the latest news, what we have going on, what we're going to be doing in the near future, and have time to answer some of your questions. So welcome, everyone. Hope you're having a good time. Like I said, I mostly was doing the dad thing over the holidays, so I've not had a lot of game time, and what game time I did have, frankly, I needed a break from a whole bunch of games this holiday season, so I was putting together Legos and playing with cool stuff. That's what I did. But I did have time to play on my regular non-live stream character as well. That character is going through the 60s, and basically is on track similar to what I was doing prior to Valaring here. And I'm just on the tail end of Moria stuff with that character, playing that with two other people in my kinship. The other piece I guess I would mention is that it is a new year, so we have new events happening, including the 25% crafting XP boost. Is that right? Live right now through the weekend. Yesterday, I put as much of the set in stone schedule as I could up on the Lotro event schedule page. So everything that's up there is penned in. It's frankly in the data of the game at this point. So unless we change something, it's going live and shutting off at that time. But not everything is on there. A couple of people have pointed out, say, for example, the Farmers Fair is not on the event schedule. And there's really a reason for that. In particular, we aren't sure on the exact date of it, but there's also a brief thought. And I'd be curious to kind of know what you guys and gals think about maybe folding some of that in to the Harvest Math Festival and then being able to develop it perhaps more fully along with the Harvest Math Festival than it currently is. That's a thought, because we always one of the balancing acts that we do our best with, and I think often succeed on, but not always, is trying to balance the number of festivals and other events that take place with all the other bonuses, and having encores but not having too many encores, et cetera, right? So I think we're successful more often than not, but every now and then it's a balancing act. So being able to consolidate, let's just say, the Farmers Fair into the Harvest Math Festival, because thematically, frankly, it makes a lot of sense, I think. Makes sense. Well, we could also just do the Farmers Fair. So either way, I don't know. We're going to kind of think about it and figure out what we want to do with that later this year. The default state is that nothing is going to change unless something does, in which case we'll let you know about it and probably talk to you about it. But anyway, that's specifically why the Farmers Fair is not on the schedule. There's a whole bunch of other things. Well, I would say not a whole bunch, but there's some number of other things that aren't on the schedule simply because the exact time isn't yet set in stone yet. And we don't want to commit at this point to a date that we might not be able to live with. So that's really what's going on there. But most of it, I would say about 80% of the 2020 Lotro events calendar is now public and set in stone. So hopefully you're digging that. And that's as of yesterday. The last year's anniversary gift you have until April 1st of this year to pick up, in which case you'll be then getting the next year's, which will also then go generally to April 1st of 2021. So that's why that's the first thing on the calendar, because I tend to put the oldest thing first and go as chronological as I can. And then occasionally if things bunch up or start weird, I just do my best to place it as appropriate. Nothing to announce about new skirmish event rewards. Nothing to announce regarding champion work. I know I talked to Vastin about some of his thoughts of what he'd, kind of pie in the sky like to do at some point, but we don't have anything scheduled to pass along to you at all. Yes, Hjormund, I have got exciting news, I think, about Riders of Rohan on the legendary worlds of Anor and Ithil. But let me first make sure I've got everyone's questions and answers. Let me make sure my mic is not muted because I haven't been looking. And everything's looking good here, so it looks like it is. So, Andrew, before I get to the other question, let me get to Andrew's question from Facebook, which is, when will the sigils glut be addressed? We're working on that right now. There was a weird release note from yesterday's patch. We had a very small patch yesterday, and I think some kind of notes may have been crossed in terms of execution or something. Because right now the trading is kind of the opposite of what you want it to be in terms of a 50-for-1 trade. So I don't want to make a definitive statement on that other than to say we are looking on it. Something isn't right there, and we'll figure out what it needs to be and hopefully get something done there. Andreas, I think I saw your post on the forums, perhaps, after you log in and select the server doesn't launch. I would suggest that you might want to run the DirectX end-user runtime from Microsoft. That's a Microsoft thing, basically get DX9 compatibility on your computer and try launching Lotro again. If you need help doing that, you can get in touch with technical support through help.standingstonegames.com. Nothing to announce on that LI package coming back in the store. Any update regarding the broken character copies to Bullroar? Well, as you can see, we are in the process of re-enabling character transfers and copies, and that's exciting news. The less exciting news is that it didn't work very well when we opened it up for the first time to Bullroar yesterday. For our first preview here of upcoming content. Unfortunately, it's not there yet, as you saw. We had about something like a 20%-ish just flat out failure rate on where are these? Yeah. Just flat out failure rate on Bullroar character copies. Now they're just Bullroar character copies, doesn't really make a difference in anything. But it was something we are enabling so that during both this preview and the other big piece of news, which is a preview next week that I'll be talking about in the near future, we wanted to make sure that at least those that could get some characters copied over there while we do the work that needs to be done to get it more widely functional, which will happen. But it was just not ready in time for yesterday. So anyway, that's what's up with that. If you try to get a character copied and it just wasn't working, you're not alone. And there's not much you can really do about it. And we're working to fix it as soon as we can. All right. And then, obviously this is the first of a series of steps that are going to need to take place to re-enable the entire transfer system more widely. And there is many kind of moving pieces to that have yet to be announced. All right, so let me get to the big news, which is Riders of Rohan on the Legendary Worlds of Anor and Ithil. The plan is, if all goes well, to release that to the Legendary Worlds, and I'm going to post this up on the forums here today as well, so it's not just on the live stream. The plan is by mid-February. Mid-February is when we are going to be targeting the release of Riders of Rohan to the Legendary Worlds of Anor and Ithil. And let me also mention, in conjunction with that, that the Rohan housing is not going to be a part of that initially. It is in the works, but it's not going to hit initially. So, we'll have more information about the Rohan housing. It's going to come a little bit later in the year, and we'll have more info on that in the near future. But that's not holding up the release of Riders of Rohan of the Legendary Worlds, and that is going to be happening in mid-February. All right, which one is this? Shades in the Swamp. Okay, this is the interlude. Golthava. Okay. Someone hiding out here? I just don't see him. No? Where are you, Golthava? All right, so that's the big piece of news. The other big piece of news is that we are targeting next week for a preview on Bullroarer of our upcoming instances, Minas Morgul instances. So that is going to be like Houses of Lamentation, Fallen Kings, and a third one as well. And that'll be... name is skipping my head from the top of my head. And that should be available for preview here next week. We have a brief preview going on like right now. But that's a pretty short preview, and we've got an update to that build already really in the works. And that'll be released hopefully next week on Bullroarer, and will be a much more full preview of our upcoming instances. So hopefully that's something you're looking forward to. Do I need to, like, be up with a... Where are you, Golthava? How could you be in the bushes here? Anyway, I've got some other things I can do, so I guess I'll just figure this one out in a little bit. All right, let me head to chat real quick. Will developers be looking at old scaling instance loot, James A. says, specifically in regard to lower level itemization in the legendary worlds? I can tell you that yes, as a matter of fact, that is something that Vaesen is doing some work on, frankly, today. Doing some kind of, I believe it's rebalancing largely kind of 1 to 50 to get the scaling of that loot really in line with the more regular kind of scaling that is seen throughout the rest of the game. This will really help them do some long-term improvements that I think will be good. So that's who it is. So I do think we're going to see some momentum in that regard in 2020 here. Are we going to address all your issues? Probably not. But hopefully we can at least target some of the things that you would like to see us target here as part of that. I have nothing to... I can't announce when the 6-person instances are going to formally drop. I think we want to get through our next Bull Roar here before we really formally announce something. But we're pretty close, as I think you're well aware. So. I think if everything is looking real good on next week on Bull Roar, then we're probably pretty darn close, I would say. Alright, so got 2 flowers left, so let me do those things. I'm not going to get into content for Riders of Rohan on Legendary in terms of, say, what kind of systems work is being done. We'll just kind of have more on that as we get closer to it. Producer's letter. So I can talk a little bit about the producer's letter with the caveat that every time I do this, I make this caveat. And every time I make this caveat, I regret it. And I regret talking about actually when the producer's letter is coming out to begin with. So with that in mind, let me do it again. One of the tasks in the very near future for obviously Sev, but in addition to other people, is to get that producer's letter out the door. And so I think that will be something that we'll see movement on in the coming weeks and probable publication, hopefully in the relatively near future. I think what we're going to do is start from a place of probably talking more about the first half of the year than the second half, and then sort of see what we can add and where we are in terms of locking down any final questions on our schedule for them. So things are well underway in that regard, but we're not there yet. I don't have a time frame to announce on the raid. We have an internal target that we're working towards. And as we get closer to that, let me discuss it then. The 12-person raid will not be on Bull Roar next week, but I believe should be coming in the pretty near future as well. So typically what will happen, if the issue you're running into, and this is to Andreas over on YouTube, if the issue you run into on a Windows 10 machine, specifically with a new or updated installation of the game client, if you run into an issue where you log in, you authenticate through the game launcher, and then you go to click on a game world and it basically just disappears and nothing happens. The most common cause of that issue is a DirectX 12 incompatibility that can be solved by running the DirectX end-user runtime from Web Installer from Microsoft. And that you can actually get from the Microsoft website. And what that'll do is put in some backwards compatibility to DX9 and 10 and 11 that doesn't really exist with a typical DX12 installation as I understand it. And that should solve your problem if that's your cause. Okay, one more fleur. So yeah, there are two pieces of info I really want to make sure get out to you today, and I'll be following up on the forums this afternoon about it, in addition to releasing, say, the beacon and some of the other kind of things we have going on. And that is that Riders of Rohan is scheduled for the second, or for mid-February, and I wanted to make sure that you were aware that the Rohan housing work that has been kind of, long planned and has been discussed is not going to be a part of that right away. That'll be coming later in the year, and we'll have more info on that in the near future. And there's also a couple of really big pieces of news that are sitting there in producer Litterville, and those should be getting to you hopefully in the relatively near future as well. Some of our plans are pretty big, and so I kind of want to hang off on even hinting at it at this point. Squirrel, I am not sure what you mean by any comments on the previewed Wildwood in Breeland. What do you mean by that? I don't know. No, that wasn't very nice. Burning down people's fields, why don't you? I will not stand for it. Yes, race changes are still in the works, and as soon as I have an ETA to announce, I will let you know. It's both a technical and kind of a big, there's a multi-department kind of effort to bring that to you, and that work continues, as I understand it. I'm going to feign innocence on that new area in Breeland by Evendom. Nothing to announce on PVMP work, sorry. I know it's one of the things that is of very high interest to those in the Court of the Rings community. The Lotro community, who happen to put up with Court of the Rings. Yeah. All right. Nothing at all to announce Kodi on Mac compatibility. We are not Catalina compatible, and so that's the current state of things, I'm sorry to say. Where is that fleur? The fleur should be anywhere over here. He'd use an 128-bit client. I love it. No, so really the short term here is previews next week for the 6-person instances that are coming post-release from Minas Morgul, and then those are going to get released. We do have a small kind of bug fix patch, I believe, planned for the coming weeks. And then we're moving ahead really full scale on development, and most of that will be covered in a producer's letter here in the near future. All right. There we are. Okay. Now, I speak to Golthorf Returned. So there's still that weird thing there that I'm not. Interlude. Shades in the Swamp. Help. Oh, I'll sort it out, I guess. All right. I often get asked what my favorite area of Lotro is. I don't know. That's the answer to that. There's a lot of great options. I would say some possible contenders are Lothlorien. I really like the kind of icy mountainous regions in general, just as a general rule. I don't know. I think just in terms of, I always am like, I'm happy to be here every time I'm there. I would say Lothlorien. We're not actually going to release a 128-bit client. We're going to kind of take the 90s game console route, and we're going to release a Super 64-bit client. It's real special. It uses blast processing, and you fit it into using a parallel port to the computer that you have. Yeah, it's true, and I call myself a dwarf. Well, let me say this though. I think probably the area I spend the most non-adventuring time in might, frankly, be Thorin's Hall, because it's easy to get to, it's easy to port to, and it's got most of the amenities I'm looking for consistently. So I tend to spend a lot of time there. So maybe I guess if you call that, if you just want to use that as a metric for what's my favorite, maybe that is the answer. Yeah, so on the producer's letter regarding kinship work, it's still something we want to do. The unfortunate reality of producers' letters is sometimes things that we're totally going to do at the time that they were written just kind of end up, for various reasons, not happening or getting moved off to different time frames. And I'm afraid to say that some of that kinship work may be a victim of that. But it's still in the works. It's still something we want to do. And I assume we'll do it. I just don't know when. But that's not to say it's dead or anything. I actually don't know the full status of it, but I know that it's not actively being worked on that I know of, because we got things like, say, Rohan housing to do as well, and some of that needs to be done. All right. Yeah, we'll see these six-person instances fairly soon get released. They should be, they'll be on Bull Roar next week, and assuming everything goes well there, then I think we'll see them released to live, in the relatively near future after that. Take care of some of this trash. Any news about more carryalls being added, hopefully making them permanently available? Nothing to announce there. Now, those who are joining us just now in 2020, we just had some carryalls available in these stores separately. That was one of the kind of longer standing requests that we've had. And so that got done over the holidays. I assume as long as you folks seem to be to be interested in them, we will be continuing to release them, and they should be released through a variety of methods, I think, here in the near future. Where am I going? Am I going down or am I going up? Yes, Squirrel, who pointed that out. Perhaps the perfect person is sitting there right now listening to this. So let me go and mention that. That is that we just yesterday, I believe, posted a new position for Standing Stone Games. We are adding another release engineer. A release engineer is the engineering position that really ushers builds to reality and makes the releases work, ushers the release process for our games. So if you are, like, say, an engineer with that skill set who thinks you'd love to work for Standing Stone Games, you can actually find that job listing over at daybreakgames.com/careers. I agree. Instrument carryall sounds great. I am going to just sort of speculate that we are going to be doing a bunch of different kinds of carryalls over time here for a bunch of different kind of items and distribute them through a bunch of different methods. But yeah. I think we're going to, short term here, see them kind of continue along the lines of where we have been, which is to release them in limited duration, limited quantities. But we'll see. Okay. No, Squirrel, I don't think this is going to really change the timing of our patch process. What it's going to do is, I think, largely allow people who are currently doing that work to branch off to other necessary tasks, other engineering work that needs to be done. A bag of holding. Yeah, so someone who's saying, what's a carryall? They're new tech that debuted really with Black Friday, I believe. And what it does is it allows you to store a whole bunch of a different item into a bag here, like this. This is my large crafting carryall. And there's a task one too. And as people, like I say, basically surmise, I think we're probably going to have other ones in the future get released. Oh, you're right. It was actually Jamesy. It was actually released for Minas Morgul, not Black Friday. That was so long ago. I mean, that was like last year sometime. This character has not picked a crafting profession. This character has not yet crafted. And the reason for that is this character, Valard, specifically for live stream gameplay. And so I just haven't really had the time to focus on it. And honestly, I'm not likely to have the time to focus on it for this particular character. So there you go. Yeah, basically a bag and within a bag. There's always talk of other hobbies in the future, Ryan, but that's something that we have not actually made any steps toward adding to the game. I don't like the word LI revamp. That is well known. That I really don't like using the phrase LI revamp because it sets scope and expectation that could never possibly be met. But I would say that we are continuing to uh, consider what sort of LI changes we could make. And if and when we have kind of more to announce in that regard, we'll let you know. All right. Let's see. The other piece I would mention, just a little bit of kind of cleanup from 2019. I am working in the coming days to do the latter bits of Extra Life and Movember work before the holiday break. I was able to do a full pass top to bottom to all the info I had. It looks like I did miss one or two people, and they should be taken care of. If you don't have your codes from me, check your inbox. If you don't have a message from me, get in touch with me, and I'll track it down and make sure that we can get that done. But that's about 90% complete at this point. I just have something about 20 some private messages to respond to from the last couple of days. And then I think I'm going to be mostly done on the Lotro side for all that stuff. So things are coming along pretty good. And then throughout the year, really, some of the things come in for titles and avatars and all that, and that's fine. The other piece I would mention, let's see, we got the producers letter, we got the event schedule, we have Rohan, we got Bull Roar. I think those are the big pieces. Producer's letter is being worked on here. Our 2020 planning is underway. Our development is underway. Final touches on the 6-person instances and moving forward for our next, content release, things like that. So, any chance to do a different UI? There was some work done just recently by one of our engineers that reopened up LI or UI skinning for the Lotro community. So that might be an option for some folks. We do have kind of long-term plans and a wide understanding that we're going to have to deal with the quote 4K issue in a relatively near future. I think that a wider overhaul would probably be likely to come from something like that. So, Trevor, I'm not really in a good position to answer your question for the following reason. I will tell you that I feel that we work very hard to maintain a good balance on sort of economics versus gameplay. But I am the community manager for Standing Stone Games. I'm the community manager for Lord of the Rings Online. So that kind of question, asking for a qualitative analysis, is probably best done with a streamer or someone who is not directly tied to the company. Ooh. All right. Do all GMs work directly inside of Standing Stone Games? No. Most of them do. But we do have people. We do have some kind of contract work that we tap into, and they are offsite. Specifically, as it regards often to localization, French and German support, things like that. Although some of that takes place here too. All right, great. So I think we are looking pretty good on Shades in this content piece. Really just time to get back to the Bjorning lands and call it, I think, a show here, because I think it's 12:47. So let's go to Blomgard and then head up to Bjorninghus. Bjorninghus. Sorry, there's something about the Vales of Anduin that bring out my inner Swedish chef. That was a joke, Metana. Sorry if a language barrier or other thing might have led you to believe otherwise. But no, the idea of a Super 64-bit client is an old 90s joke, kind of making fun of the Super Nintendo and kind of super systems that all tended to come out in the 90s as a way to kind of differentiate their new systems. We will just be continuing to work on various 64-bit client, I would imagine, stability issues here in the coming year. And then, frankly, we're rolling it out on the other game side, I think, in 2020 here. So the people who do a lot of 64-bit client work are still busy doing 64-bit client work, just not as much over in Lotro. Although I think they actually recently did kind of look at some bugs and such. So the 32X, yeah. The thing I like about the Sega Genesis, there's a lot I like about the Sega Genesis, but one of the things I like about it is it's almost like its design was informed by the Transformers, or formed by 80s toys, because you have the base system, and you could plug in the 32X, and then eventually you could drop on the CD, No, you drop on the 32X and you plug it into the CD, Sega CD thing. And so it was like this modular system in a way that you just don't see very much. And it was always... I loved it, but then, it made no sense. But yes, Atari wins. I don't want to get too specific, Arbany, about contracts and localization. Is it possible to have other languages? Theoretically possible. If we wanted to do that kind of development work and then be able to maintain that kind of development work, there would be kind of budgets and things that would have to be considered for that. We don't have any plans to do that. But theoretically, it would be... Won't actually take... Oh, there we go. Good. Theoretically, if the question you're asking, though, is are they the same people who work on localization, the answer is no, I believe. Certainly the people are not the same. Whether the third-party entity provides both... I believe they do some localization services for us in addition to CS, but there's also a different localization service we utilize. And that's about as specific as I guess I would want to get with it. So yes, Derek over on Facebook, the when on Rohan for the Legendary Worlds we're targeting mid-February for their release. That's a brand new announcement today, and we will be probably making that announcement on the forum somewhere here as well. So hopefully that's enough of a heads up. Got about a month-ish. Yes. Oh, thank you, Barafunda. I can't believe I completely missed discussing that. Winterstock is this weekend. Winterstock is today. It kicks off today here. Oh, no. Winterstock is next weekend. Sorry about that. Let me think about that. Yes, because I was writing the Beacon to be published today saying that next Friday, which is not today, but a week from Friday. So yes, next Friday is Winterstock 7, and that's sweet. And you can find more about that at basically winterstock.guildlaunch.com, I think. And there's a whole bunch going on there. That's on Landreval, right? Yeah, Landreval. Yes, Alistair. We did find a couple of odds and ends that previously were not stacking together. Some of the consumables are now stacking together. Not only did we do that consciously, but we're hoping to find a few more places we can do that as well in the future when the fix is pretty easy like that. So I think that's sort of what the deal is. And yes, Druid's Fire will be streaming most, if not all of it, on her channel. That's twitch.tv/DruidsFire. I would imagine we might pop in, if possible, and do a little bit on Lotro stream here as well. But I think Druid's Fire's channel is going to be the place to go for Winterstock this year, probably. All right, so we did just update the Lotro stream calendar this week as well. Let me actually quick pop on over to the new Lotro stream schedule for you before we call it a show. And why did it not load? Why did you not load? All of a sudden it's not working. Fine. When I'm off the air here, you'll see it. It doesn't want to play. That's going to wrap it up, though. We do have some new shows, so go check them out. That's going to wrap it up with Court of the Rings here for this week. I'm back to a regular schedule, so you'll see me most Fridays from here on out in the foreseeable future right here on twitch.tv/LotroStream, youtube.com/Lord of the Rings/live, and facebook.com/Lotro. Next Friday at noon as well. Until then, have fun, everyone. Talk to you soon.